Hello there, it's Jan here from JB Crafts, and I am back today with project number 3 in my 12 Days of Christmas series for this year. So we're going to do 2 projects a week for the next few weeks right up to Christmas. And number 3 today, I wanted to get this in early in case any of you guys wanted to have a go at making this. But I've made a little advent calendar box, sort of book almost. Now, this is not my original idea. There are lots and lots of these out in YouTube world, and I have had a look at several tutorials from different people who I'm sure, you know, again, somebody must have come up with the idea originally, but I know there's lots of people out there have done it. So I just wanted one on the channel that I could break down into simple instructions for you guys to follow if you want to make it. And again, it's a nice size. You know, when you look at the size of my hand there, it's a good size. It measures 9 3/4 inches by 7 inches by just under 3 inches on the spine. And then when we open up inside, we've got a series of 24 little gift boxes that you can add, you know, whatever kind of little treats or, you know, gifts or anything that you want in there. Now, I chose to sort of stagger mine. I didn't want the numbers in consecutive order, so I've got a little bit of higgledy-piggledy order, which I know goes against the OCD, but I like on an advent calendar having to look for the next number to see which one you're going to open next. So yeah, this was my take on what's been done, as I say, many, many times. We've got the cover and then the boxes. There is a lot of repetition making the boxes, and I'm going to talk about that when we get into the video as to how I think is the best way to do it and what I've learned from watching other people make these sort of creations. But this is what we're going to make today. I've just kept a very simple bit of decor on the front just so that it's got some detail. I haven't put a closure on mine. Whether I will add anything, I'm not sure, but I just wanted it as is. And you can see all the way around there, nice and sturdy. It's got mount board inside, and yeah, let's get on and have a look at how I made it. Okie dokie, so let's get started then. I'm gonna make the cover first, and then I'm going to show you how to make one of the boxes. And obviously I have got the rest of them prepared because there's a lot of repetition with this one. So we're going to start off with the cover for our advent, and I've got some pieces of I've used mount board just because I have got a stash of it. You could use grey board for this. You could use the backs off your paper pads. I tend to keep the cardboard back off my paper pads. This is around about a millimetre, I think, thick. So something, you know, that's got a little bit of rigidity to it. And I've cut a front and a back piece, and mine are going to measure 9 3/4 tall by 7 inches wide. Now, I arrived at this measurement by laying out all my boxes, and then I've added some measurements on, and when we come to stick these down, I'll explain a little bit more about that. So if you want to follow the same dimensions as mine, 9 3/4 tall by 7 inches wide, and then I've got a middle piece which is the same height but just 2 3/4 inches. So we're going to end up with a front cover, a back cover, and a spine. So that's the first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to cover those. I'm going to wrap those in some paper. So I just went through my pads, and I wanted something reasonably neutral for the background just as a cover. And obviously my 12 by 12 inch wasn't big enough, so I've stuck 2 pieces together down the center here, and I've made this is going to be the center of my spine, so that seam runs down the back of the spine. And then we're going to cover it with another piece of pattern paper so you won't actually see the join. So this one's going to be centered in here, and then we're going to put the other 2 pieces, but I am going to work on the other side. This plainer pattern is going to be the front. So again, I've laid all my pieces out, added on the respective measurements, and ended up with a piece that measures 19 inches across and 11 3/4 inches tall, and that's going to give me an inch border all the way around to actually wrap. Now any of you that make memory albums, mini albums, anything like that, you'll be very familiar with how this system works. So I'm going to turn it over. Done a little bit of prep on the back. You can see that I've got my sort of pattern side on the inside. I don't want too much to interfere with what we're going to put on top. We're going to lay some pattern paper to decorate the front of the book. So what I've done is I've just used my ruler to make an inch margin all the way around the outside, just to give me a guideline, and then I've added some double-sided tape to mine ready. So essentially we're going to lay out our pieces inside here. I'm going to use the lines as a little bit of a guide, and we want a gap between the spine pieces and the outside pieces. So I'm just going to use my lines that I've drawn as a guideline. And then I've taken a couple of pieces of the offcuts. So these are like a double piece. These are just pieces that have come off the edge of mine when I cut it. And I'm going to use these to make sure that you've got a gap in between here. All right, so I'm just going to pop that in, and I'm going to sort of slide this up at either side to make sure that that gap is a nice even gap all the way down. So we're going to start off at one side, and I have popped some tape just on the back of here, but I'm also going to use my all-purpose glue. It is a very, very strong glue. The reason I've added tape is because I do need it to stay in place when I've placed it onto my card, my pattern paper. If I just use the wet glue, obviously it's going to take a few minutes to dry, and I don't want to risk the pieces sort of wobbling while I'm trying to lay these in place. So we're going to take off the liner. I've just popped a strip of tape, whoops, down each side just to help anchor it while that glue's drying. I know I've watched lots of videos of people making memory books and things, and a lot of them use the score tape. Now I don't have that as a brand, and I know that it can be quite pricey. So I've just used my ordinary double-sided tape, and I use Sticks 2 adhesives for a lot of my things. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some of the all-purpose and cover the rest of this with the all-purpose glue, so that we get a nice bond and we don't get any sort of air bubbles inside. So the first one I'm going to do, I'm going to use my lines here, and I'm going to sort of work towards getting that one as straight as possible on those lines. Let me just pop that up to one edge. It's not easy when I can't sort of, I don't want to put my head over the top of it too much. But yeah, I'm good with that one. And then give that a good press down like so. And that glue will absorb. And then once we've got them all together, we'll give a press on the other side. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is the same with the spine. Okay, so don't be tempted. I know a lot of the times I'm saying, you know, if you want to centre something, put the two sides on first. But in this instance, I need this spacing to be right in the centre. So if we have a little bit extra at this side, I'm not too worried about that. When it all goes together, it will sort of resolve itself. So again, I'm just going to run that glue down the middle. And then we're going to use our two spacers. And what we need to try and do now is get these to run parallel with that edge here. So again, I'm going to use my line at the bottom. I'm going to squeeze that together so that both of those pieces are trapped nicely in the middle there. And when we remove those, we've got the perfect gap here now to work with. And I'll explain in a second. If you haven't come across this system before, I will explain why we need that gap in the middle. And then we're going to stick that final piece down. So this is going to be our back cover. So again, release that paper off there. Add some of my wet glue on there to give it a good bond. And then I'm going to do the same again. I am going to get my 2 pieces, my spacer. I'm going to pop those right up to, so I've got those pushed right up to that spine piece. And then we're going to turn this one over. I'm going to follow my line at the bottom here, push it right up to get it towards that spacer. And then just make sure I'm just popping to make sure that this one runs parallel at the bottom. I'm not too worried if it runs out slightly at the top. We can rectify that because we've got the wrap to go around it. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring in my stamp pad. I just want something that's got a little bit of give in it. And I'm going to use my bone folder and just gently run it down this gap, because we're going to crease this now. We're going to bend the card. So just to get it going, and then just very gently lift it. Okay, and you can see when we close that these 2 pieces come together, and that's why we don't need to stick them next to each other. If I hadn't have left the gap here, there wouldn't have been room for this to close. Okay, so I'm just going to give this a little burnish down the edge there to make sure that we've got that nice crease in place. And again, we're going to just very gently, because you are stretching the paper, and again I'm just going to crease down that edge with the base of my bone folder to make sure that we've got, and this will become the casing for our little advent calendar box. Okay, so that bit's done its job. I can get rid of that now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start and wrap the edges around here to seal it. So just before I do that, I want to cut off the corners. Now I find it easier to put the tape on first. Yes, it wastes a little bit of tape, but I find it easier than trying to cut angles on the base of the tape. So where you've got the 2 parts that cross here, I'm going to come across at an angle, not quite, I've got about 1 millimetre past the edge of my mount board, and just trim these corners off. So again, I just not quite up to the mount board. I just want a little bit of cardstock to play with, otherwise you'll see the edges, the corners through the pattern paper. So again, a nice chunk off those corners, almost up to the edge, but not quite. You can just see I've got about 1 millimetre from the corner. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring these in, and I tend to use the edge of the mount board here to just start and bring these in, and then burnish with the tool. And then we're going to do the same at this edge. So again, just lift it up level, use the edge of that mount board to really crease it into place, and then once we've got that one, we can burnish it. Now I'm going to stick the 2 sides down first. Okay, so we're going to release the paper off here, and I'm not going to add any extra wet glue to this, because I've got, as long as you've got a really nice strong tape, these will actually do the job. So make sure that it's right up to the edge, start in the middle, wrapping it all the way round, and then once it's in place, you can burnish that tape down. You want that to be really, really well adhered to that mount board in the middle. And then I'm going to flip it round and do the same at this side. So we're going to remove that tape. Oops. Same on this one. Just get that liner off there. And again, make sure that it comes right up to the mount board. So I'm really sort of giving it quite a tug. Put the centre down, and then you can lay the rest of it down nice and flat. And again, it's by burnishing it, it's getting all the air bubbles out of the tape and making sure that the whole of the tape is bonded with your cover. Okay, so you can see now we've got 2 really nice edges going there for the 2 outside edges. And then we're going to do the same with the base sections. Now I did my tape in 2 pieces just because I found it easier, but you can go all the way along here, and if you have a wider tape, if you've got that 1-inch tape, you could use that and just put 1 piece, but I don't have a 1-inch piece, so I ended up running two lines of tape across mine. Okay, so again, I'm going to use the edge of the mount board to just start and crease that paper in at the back there. And then again, I'm going to bring it up over the middle first, like so. And then make sure that the rest of it is pushed right up against that mount board. And then you'll see that you get that little indentation where we did the fold. The same at this side, really pull it up against the edge of your mount board and then just reinforce the bit where, oh, not too hard, I've just gone through mine, but we are going to cover that, so we should be okay. Okay, a little bit too eager there. And then the same at this side. And this is the wrap part for the external part of the binder. We're also going to put some paper on the inside before we stick our boxes in. So again, I just need to get that liner off. Now then, a little bit of mine has gone under the edge of there, so it's been a bit pesky, but I do need to try and, it's where I've just gone over the edge with the mount board there, but try and get as much of that off as I can, otherwise we're not going to get the stick that we want. Come on, there we go. And then the same with this piece, and then we're going to do that wrap again. So again, bring it to the front. I'm going to start in the middle. I'm going to start it off with the edge of the mount board there, bring the middle up first and get that stuck in place, and then work my way along that edge and along that side, and just make sure that it's all nicely tucked in place there. Again, burnish it all, make sure those edges are nice and crisp. And then again, just very gently, I was a little bit heavy with the other one, but just reinforce those spaces, and again, just nice and gently, and you can see we've got that lovely sort of shaping ready to receive our little boxes on the inside. Okay, now then, next thing I'm going to do is cover the internal parts of it. So I've got a piece of pattern paper to go in the middle. And the middle bit we will see, all right, but the rest of it we're not going to see. And then I've got pieces that I'm going to put over like so to just cover it up. Now then, do I want those to go underneath, or do I want them to go on top? I think I'm going to put the middle piece over the top. So I've cut 2 pieces that measure 9 1/4 by 6 1/2 for the inside, and this is the same paper as what I've got on the front. So I use 3 sheets of 12 by 12 for mine, and I've come 1/2 inch down from these measurements here, so that I've got a nice sort of 1/4 inch border all the way around there. Just trying to decide whether I want, I think I'm going to put the central piece on first, because the boxes are going to sit over this dimension here. Yeah, so we'll put this piece in. So the middle piece is the same height, it's the 9 1/4, which is 1/2 inch less than this, and then I've gone for 4 inches because I wanted it to overlap. We're going to centre this so that these pieces will secure the edges. Didn't want any loose edges laying about. So 9 1/4 inches tall by 4 inches wide, and I haven't put tape on these because these are going on the inside and they're going to adhere to the rest of the paper. I am just going to use my all-purpose glue and get these stuck in the middle. So we'll go with this one first, and all I want to do is center this. So I'm just going to sort of eyeball either side, and then about 1/4 inch border at the top and 1/4 inch border at the bottom. And I think I'm just looking from where I've got my little creases here to the edge, and the same at the top, to try and make sure that it's reasonably even. And then once that's done, we can push that into place. Now I'm going to wait for the glue to dry, and then I will reinforce those little crease lines where the book closes, but just giving it a second to dry. Now these two are going to go in like so. Now I said I'd use 3 pieces of 12 by 12. I stuck 2 together originally to get my large piece for the cover, and then the bits that I had left, I didn't quite have enough. This was the width of what was left. So all I've done is I've taken a piece that I'd cut off the end of this strip, and I've actually stuck it together, and I'm going to use that in the back because the boxes are going to stick over here. So by the time we've got 12 boxes on here, this is fairly going to be hardly visible. So yeah, make your paper work for you. Don't sort of cut into another piece unless you have to. And you know, I have to chuckle when I say this because we're all very frugal with things, with our supplies. I've probably got enough pieces of 12 by 12 paper to decorate my whole house with, but we don't want to cut into an extra piece unless we have to. You know, we're all the same, and I do have to giggle at myself. I'm not going to bother taking the backing off here. It's not really necessary. I just want this to cover. And again, I'm going to leave that 1/4 inch border so it should line up with the green piece, and we've got a border all the way round like so. Give that a good press down, and then I'm going to do the same with this one. So 9.5 by 6.5, and again we'll get that glue, and then we'll leave this one to dry while I show you how to make. I'm going to show you how to make one of the boxes, and then I have prepared the rest of it. Now, if you're not into the batch making, you know, this may not be the project for you. And I must admit, I'm not, you know, the world's favourite batch maker, but something like this, you know, you've got a really nice home decor piece that you can use year after year after year. So it's worth it. It's taken me probably a couple of days in total. And some of the cutting I did while I was sat in front of the TV one evening, sat watching the telly. So yeah, it wasn't sort of a labour of love as such. I've just taken my time with it and really sort of enjoyed the process, knowing that I'm going to have a piece that I can use in the home. So again, I'm just going to use, this is actually my stamp press tool, but I'm just going to use that to make sure that all that glue is spread out and it's made contact with the panel underneath. Okay, and then I'm just going to gently lift that and use my score tool again. It's hiding from me. Just very, very gently, because this is not 100% dry yet, and I don't want to crease the paper. So again, I just want to lift it slightly just before the glue dries. I'm going to leave it then to do its thing. So again, I'm going to turn it round so that I can use my right hand, and again, just very, very gently giving it a suggestion of where that line needs to be. And then I'm going to leave it to dry, because if I start trying to bend it too much, it's going to ruffle. So we'll leave that one to dry now, and we've got this all ready to stick our 12 boxes on this side, 12 boxes on that side, and then I'm going to do some extra decoration on the front of the book. So I'm going to pop that up there to dry, and then I can just see a little bit of a ruffle there now, where this is why I didn't want to fold it too quickly. I do need that glue to dry. And this is where the tape, I know a lot of people that make these albums use the tape purely for that reason, because they want to be able to manipulate it straight away. Right, that one can go up there. And then I'm going to bring it in, and I've made a little template for you guys for the boxes. And you're going to want to make 24 of these. And like I say, it is a process. Excuse me. So what I did, and again, through watching, there are lots of people have done these. This is not my idea. I don't claim for it to be my idea, but I did want to have an advent calendar on my channel. So I've watched quite a few videos, some of the people that I follow on a regular basis, and a lot of them have got lots of different ideas. And every one of them that I watched said that if you're batch making, and any of you that do this with your cards will realise this, is that it's much quicker to do each process times the number that you need. So in this case, 24 times, rather than doing one box, putting it together, decorating it, putting it to one side, making a second box, sticking it together, putting it. It's much quicker to first of all cut all the pieces of cardstock. So the first thing I did was use my cardstock, and I've got craft card for mine, purely because I wanted something that was going to go in my home. And at Christmas we have my lounge is very neutral, it's all browns and creams, and then my tree's green. It's an artificial green tree, and the decoration on it is champagne gold and red, the dark red being the spot colour in my lounge. So I chose colours that were going to suit my home decor basically. So yeah, you know, you can go down any route with the colours, but I thought the craft card was a good one for the base. It's nice and strong, it's easy to manipulate. So I've cut 24 pieces that measure 8 1/4 by 5 3/4. Now this means that you can get 2 out of a sheet of A4 or letter size. I think you should be able to get it. Will you be able to get it out of your letter? You might have to just adjust the measurements slightly for your letter size. But the A4 here in the UK, I can get 2 pieces of these, so 2 boxes. So I use 12 sheets of A4. And then first of all, we're going to do some scoring on here. So if I just grab my scoreboard from the side of me here, and I want my score tool at the ready. And on the long side, I'm going to score at 2, 4, 6 and 8. So I'm going to make it, the dimensions of my box are going to be 2 by 2 by 1 1/4 inches deep. Okay, so simple scoring for the first one. Just to divide it into 4 pieces, we're going to go at 2 inches and make a score line, 4 and do that score line, 6, and it should leave you again 8, a little 1/4 inch tab to join the box together. So nice and straightforward. That's my vertical lines here. Okay, now if you haven't seen any of my videos before, the pink and the blue, the pink lines are the score lines, the blue lines are going to be cut lines, and then obviously the pieces that we're going to take away. So then what I want to do is rotate this, and I'm going to put that little 1/4 inch tab at the top, and then bring down these ones. So I'm going to score at 1/2 inch, 2 1/2 and 3 3/4. So 1/2 inch down this edge, and I always do it gently twice, it's just a habit that I get to. Then we're going to go to 2 1/2. I apologise if there's any background noise today. I've got workmen somewhere over the back of the house working. They're digging the road up by the sounds of it. And then we want 3 3/4. So again, a couple of nice gentle score lines. So if I just bring this back, we're done with that now, and show you that template again so that you can see the score line. So along the vertical, the long edge, we've got 2, 4, 6 and 8, which are my measurements here. And then we rotated it with the little skinny bit at the top, and we came down here and we scored at 1/2 inch, 2 1/2 and 3 3/4. So you'll get that nice grid on here. Now it's not easy to see on the camera, I appreciate that, but we're going to do the folding. So wherever you have got a score line now, we're actually going to fold. So that little skinny one, I find it easier to use the whole piece of the card and fold it against itself. And then you want to really burnish these folds in place. And then all those are going to be mounting folds today. We're not going to do any fancy folding. It's all going to be mounting folds, and make sure that they're all burnished nicely so that you've got that real nice sharp crease in them. Then we're going to do the same again. I've got that little 1/2 inch one, so I'm going to use the bulk of my card there to fold it, burnish it in place, and then we've got 2 more sets of score lines along that long side, and we just want to pop all of those in place. Okay, so this is going to fold round and create our box with the little tab there to stick it together. We've got base pieces and we've got top pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these little skinny parts off. Where I've done the pencil here, we want to cut away those little skinny parts. So that bottom 1/4 inch tab, I am going to cut away that rectangle and just take a little tiny angle off the edge there. We're going to create a little blue tab, and then I'm going to do the same for both of these 2 top sections. We're just going to leave that little bit in the middle here, which is this bit. So this is the bit that I want to keep. The rest of it, I'm actually going to cut this away, and I'm cutting the score line and everything away, and then just angle it in gently, and you've created your little blue tab, which we're going to fix the box together with. This is going to be the depth of the box. And then on the base, we're going to cut up all these edges on the base. Okay, so all these right up to that first horizontal score line, and I am literally going to cut along these like so, just to release them. So I've cut them up to that first line here, and when we start to put this together now, you can see that we've got the pieces to create the back and the front. Okay, and then at the top, I want to cut away a little bit more at the top. So this one wants to remain in its whole length. So if I turn it round now and put it this way now, this piece we're not cutting any away from. So all I'm going to do is cut down that all the way to that horizontal again, so that you've just got that little 1 1/4 inch piece intact. And then I'm going to do the same down the rest of these. So again, we are going to cut all the way down, and then we need to do some cutting away. Okay, so if I turn this way now, we're going to take out the whole section on this one. So if ever you're concerned about what you should be doing and when, grab your pencil and mark out which bits we're going to cut away. All right, so I'm going to fold this one back, and I'm just going to cut slightly below that score line and take away the whole of that piece. We don't need that piece. So you can see now that we've taken this one away, this bit away, this bit away. All right, then I'm just going to leave a couple of tabs here. Now these measured about 3/4 inch, and I just happened to realise when I was messing around that my ruler is about 3/4 inch. Now you can eyeball this and just cut them. You can measure it and pop a line on them. All I did was use my ruler, got it level with the score line, and then literally use this as a guide to chop away, so that we've got that little 1/2 tab kind of thing. And then you want to do the same on this piece. Whoops. Yep, so we're going to do the same here. So again, I just used my ruler, lined it up with that score line the best that I could, and then snip this one away as well. So if I put this back in place now, you can see on the template where we've taken those pieces away. So this one remained intact. This one, we've got a tab. We've taken the whole section out of this one, and we've got a tab here. Okay, and then all I'm going to do now is I just want to make sure that I've got no parts of the score line left. So just check the edge of those 2 tabs that you've made, and if you can see any score line remaining, you just want to trim that out of the way. Okay, and that's my box part ready. And then if I put it back on here again, you can see we want to do this 24 times. So what I did was cut all the pieces, then I did all the scoring on all the pieces, then I did all the cutting on all the pieces, and then the next bit that we're going to do is I just wanted to round the corners and add a little thumb catch in it. So again, I'm just using my corner rounder, and the only bit that I want to do is the very top edge of that longest piece. Okay, and this is going to be the bit that tucks in the front of the closure of the box. So just by rounding the edges, it's going to help that box close. And then on the front edge here, the one where we cut the whole section out, I've just got this is a 3/4 inch hole punch. It's not really relevant what size it is, but you just want a little thumb tuck to help open the box. So I'm just going to take a tiny little piece out. And when we put this together now, we're going to have room for this to actually put your thumb in to open the box. Now, the last thing that I'm going to do is, when we've got this stuck together, this is going to be my front panel here. So taking that one out of the way, the rest of them, I am just going to trim a very, very tiny bit of a wedge off this bottom edge here. Just so that when we close it all up, I've not got any ugly edges sticking out. So again, just a tiny little bit. It's essentially cutting those score lines away. And again, you know, it's about a 1/16 inch at the bottom, just tapering up towards where those two meet, like so. Just like when we're making a normal box. If you get any that's a bit stubborn, just snip it with your scissors so that you don't risk damaging your card. And again, just on that last side, like so. So we're all good to start sticking together now. So I got all my boxes to this point. I am going to use my quick grab glue. So my acrylic glue that I use for my embellishments is a faster drying glue than the clear Collall. So I'm going to use this to pop my box together. So I've just put glue on the tab there, folded one section in, and then this one should fold and meet it directly at that score line. Give it a second for that glue to grab, and then we can fold it back this way, and you should have a nice flush edge on that little box there. And then we're going to do the base. All right, so once that's in place, this is the front. Keep this one out of the way. I like to bring the back one in first. Then I'm going to apply glue onto one of the tabs at the side. Fold that one in. Put glue on the tab at the other side. And then the last one to close is going to be that one that we left the whole square. And you'll see how that covers the whole of the bottom now. Now I can just see a tiny bit of score line left there that I am going to trim to make it straight. Okay. And then I want to put glue and make sure that we've got a nice seal on this one, because this is going to be the final closure on that base. Okay, and then make sure that everything's nice and square. Pop it down, give it a good press inside. You can use your ruler or your bone folder just to make sure that it's all sealed. And then you've got your two little tabs and then your front piece. And you want this to be nice and secure, which is why I didn't trim anything off the edge of it. All I did was round the corners to help it go, and then that little finger pull there allows you to open your little box. Okay, so that's one made. And then I'm going to decorate this one, and again I'm going to keep it fairly simple. You can go as much as you want with these, but all I did was create myself a selection of pattern paper. So I had a look through my stash and I went and picked papers that toned with that colour scheme that I mentioned. So I've got a solid red, I've got a brown one, sort of to marry up with the craft card, and these are from different paper pads. I just went through my Christmas paper pads, and then I've got a couple that are double-sided, so I've used a little bit of each. The neutral one, I've got the red one there. I didn't use this side, but I used some of the printed one, and then a bit of the green and a bit of the plain. So all I did was cut myself 24 pieces, and these all measure 1 7/8 inch square. So the top of your box is 2 inches square, and I have literally just come down 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to pop this on top. Again, I'm carrying on with that quick grab glue just because I want everything to stick well and not start moving about. I've got the little opening at the front here, so anything that's got a pattern that's oriented, so mine's got writing on this particular one, make sure that you're reading it the right way and get that one set on top. And then I used my little number dies. I've got a set of number dies again that I've had a while that were just the right size, and cut out. I did all the die cutting in one go. Now then, somewhere I've got a piece of paper, and it was a case of working out how many numbers I needed. So what I did was write out my numbers from 1 to 24 and then just calculated how many of each that I wanted. So I've had to cut 13 number ones, 8 number 2, 3 threes, 3 fours, and then 2 of the rest of them. You think, my goodness, that's a lot of die cutting, but one pass through with all mine were actually attached together. So I've passed it through twice and got numbers 1 to 0 twice. So that actually took care of a lot of them in one go. Then I decided to separate it because I didn't want to keep running the numbers through that I didn't need. And then I've run this one through a couple of times, which has given me extra numbers and the extra 2 number 3s. And then it was just a case of cutting the 1 and the 2 as many times as I needed it. So all I did was just cut little pieces of cardstock down to the size that I needed, and I used my little mini die cutting machine just to keep popping those through until I'd got the amount that I needed. So I've got number 24 left here just to stick on, and then I have got the others already. So I cut them out of some gold. Again, just keeping in with the theme, but again, whatever you fancy. And you know, first of all, I'm like, do I want them in the middle? Do I want them on an extra circle? Do I want to mat and layer them? But obviously remembering that whatever you're doing 24 times. So for this one, just to keep it nice and simple, I decided to just go with the numbers, and I'm going to put mine down in the bottom right hand corner. So a few little dabs of glue there. And because it's on my shiny cardstock again, I tend to dab off the excess, and I'm just going to come down to this bottom right hand corner. So again, we'll do the same with this one. And pop this one on here. Okay, so that's good to go. And we've got a whole set of these at the ready now. I was busy playing with the rest of them, and I've got all the others done ready. So if I just show you my little collection now, I've got numbers 1 to 24, all made exactly the same, with a collection of those papers. You can see I've got several, the red one, the green one, I've got a couple of the stripes in there, I've got a couple of that sort of snowflakey one, and just done a whole mixture. Oh, there was a plaid one as well. I think that was a scrap that I'd used up. But yeah, that's the plaid one. So just a whole mixture of those colours that suit my home decor. And we've got all those at the ready. Now then, the next job is to get those stuck into our case. Now, decision to make with this one is whether you want to go for the numbers in sequence or whether you want them random. Now, I decided I was going to do mine randomly. So I'm just making sure now that this folds nicely. Now that glue started to dry, we've got that in shape, and you can see there we've got our casing good to go. So there is actually room on here to get 4 rows of 3 boxes, which is how I arrived at my measurements. And I did say to you at the beginning, how did I get there? So what I did, I don't know whether I've still got my piece of paper, but I drew out a plan on a piece of paper. I think I've just tidied up lots and lots of things. But basically it was the rectangle. And I know that these are 2 inches square. So if I had them side by side, for example, if I had 1, 2, 3 side by side, I knew that that was going to measure 6 inches. But I didn't want them right next to each other. I wanted 1/4 of an inch on the outside, like so. And I wanted a 1/4 of an inch in the middle. So I've got my 6 inches plus 1/4 here, and another 1/4, and another 1/4, and another 1/4. So that gave me 7 inches. If you remember the first piece, the front measured 7, and then I did the same down the bottom, and that's where I got my 9 3/4 inches from. Okay, so again, it's up to you whether you want to have these in order. Now I wanted mine completely random, so what I did was actually work out where I wanted all the numbers to go, because I didn't want to end up with patterns next to each other that had the same paper on. So all I've done is I've done a plan of where I wanted them to go. Then I laid out the paper squares, and then I stuck all my numbers on before I adhered them to the boxes. So I am actually going to follow this now. So for example, we're going to start with number 1, then I want number 13, and then number 7. So you can see that I've got papers that don't actually match, they just complement each other. Then I want number 17, number 9, and number 21. So again, we've got different set of papers there, like so. Then I want number 5, number 23, and number 19, like so. And there's just going to be the same gap between all of them. And then I want number 11, number 3, and number 15. Okay, so that's 12 of them, and then I'm going to do the same for the numbers at this side. Okay, so we've got, on my plan, I've got number 4, number 20, and number 12, like so. Then we've got 16, 8, and 22, 24, number 2, and number 14, and then number 10, number 18, and number 16. So this is how mine is going to stick together. So I've tried to get, I didn't want to have, you know, sort of the reds touching or the greens next to each other. So just by laying out those little paper squares before I stuck them on the boxes on my grid here, so I had all the paper squares laid out on here, and then put the numbers on top of them, so that I knew when I come to put them back in here, I've got all the patterns, but none of them are actually sitting next to each other. So, you know, I've got a couple of these on this side, a couple on this side, and so on and so on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick all these down, and I think I am going to use my hot glue for this. I think it'll be the quickest way of doing it. I'm not going to do it all on camera because it's going to take me a little while, but I think I'm going to use my hot glue, and I'm going to start on the outside edges of the paper and get them positioned around the outside. Because we made this piece to size underneath, these outside boxes will touch the edge of that pattern piece that we stuck inside, so I can get all those lined up around the edge, and then there will just be room to drop these middle ones in the center. So yeah, I think I'm going to use my hot glue gun to do that, and just run hot glue across the base of them all, and then there will be an instant stick in there at the bottom. So I'm going to pause the video, get all those stuck down, and then I'll come back to you to show you how I'm going to finish off decorating the actual casing. I'll be right back. Okie dokie, so I've got all those fastened in now. I've used my hot glue gun just on the base of them, and stuck those all in place. And you know, it's not perfect, but it's a handmade product, so I'm quite happy with it. And then that folds up. The spine is just big enough to actually let the boxes meet inside. And then when I've closed it, obviously you've got outside edges of the boxes that are just the craft card, and if you're happy with that, that's fine. I've just introduced a little bit of the colour again, just around those exposed edges, and I've just got pieces that are 1 3/4 by 1 inch, and just pop those on those outside edges that are showing. So that's where we've got to so far. Now, I haven't put a closure on mine. If you wanted to add ribbon and things like that, I would be doing that before you stuck those back panels on the inside, so that they were trapped under that layer where we covered the inside of the folder. But I didn't want to have the ribbon on mine, because I didn't want, when this was stood open, all the bits of ribbon trailing. So I think what I might do eventually, to keep this safe, I'm not too worried about it for Christmas, but for safe, I might make like a wrap to go around it, so that when it's packed away at the end of the year, because I hope to use this again, you know, in the future, that it will just be kept nicely together. So probably make a decorative wrap to go around it. So the only thing left to do now then is I wanted to put some detail on the front, just so that, you know, it had a little bit of interest on the front of it. And I've just made a couple of panels for this, nothing really fancy. I introduced a tiny little bit of glitter card. Before that, now then, I've got another piece somewhere. Let me just, I want to wrap round the back to cover up that seam at the back. So I've cut a little bit of the red here. This was the reverse side of the panel that I've used here. So this was another piece of my pattern paper. And again, I wanted the Christmas tree, although we are going to cover some of that up. That's the front panel. But what I want to do with this is actually pop this over the back here, so that we've got a little bit of detail on the spine. So what I'm going to do here is, again, I ended up joining it because the piece that I had left wasn't quite big enough. But what I want to do is work out, my spine was 2 3/4 inches. So I'm going to make it 2 7/8 so that it will wrap all the way round. This measures 6 1/4. It's just the piece that I had left. So the 2 7/8 from there leaves me 1, 2, 3 3/8. So half of 3 3/8. Half of 3 is 1 1/2. I'm going to do a 1 5/8. And then if I have my 2, what would do 2 3/4, so we were going to leave 2 7/8. Yeah, this one's going to be 1 7/8. So they're not quite even, so I'm not too worried about that, because one's going to be at the front and one's going to be at the back. So I'm just going to fold and burnish those down that edge there. So again, make sure it's nice and straight here, and give it a burnish, and the same at that side. Just make sure it's running straight and burnish. And then this one's actually going to cover, so I need to make sure that my music notes are the right way up, and this is going to cover here like so. So we get a little bit of that red on the front, little bit of the red on the back. And again, I think I'm going to pop a piece of my double-sided tape down either side, so that I can get it stuck and it doesn't wiggle about. And then I will add some of the wet glue in between as well. So I am just going to run some of my tape down that long edge and down this long edge. So this measures the same as the book. So the book was 9 3/4 inches. And then, like I said, the width of it was just the piece that I had left after I'd cut my panel out. So whatever width you want will depend how much you get wrapping around each side. So I'm going to start off with the front, because I want to make sure that it's running nice and straight. Take my liner off, like so. Not worried about this bit at the back where I joined it. And then I'm going to add that wet glue again so that we get a nice bond in between the two papers. Now you don't have to do this. You know, my original plan was to cover up the seam that I'd made, and then I ended up with another seam. So, you know, it doesn't really matter. So again, I'm just going to put glue over the back and the panel that we're going to stick down, and then I'll do the back panel afterwards. So make sure that those edges are nice and secure. Got a little bit too much on there. And then what I want to do is actually pop this over the back, because there's only the wet glue at the back. Line it up with the bottom of the cover and the top of the cover, the best that I can. Like so. And then get that stuck onto the back there. And once we've got that stuck down, I can then remove that last piece of release paper on the tape, add a little tiny bit more glue down that edge, like so. I think I need to refill my glue bottle, and then wrap this one around here like that. Okay, and then I was thinking about popping a little bit of the gold down there as well to link it in. I introduced a little bit of gold glitter card on this here. So yeah, I think I'm just going to run a strip, and I've just cut off the edge of a piece, a 1/4 of an inch strip, and I'm going to pop that, rather than putting it next to it, I think I'm just going to run it over the top edge there. So I'm going to run glue just down that outside edge, and then pop this one and run it level with the edge of the red paper. And this is just all final decoration, you know, so whatever you decide for yours, I'm going to let that dry and then snip that end off, and then I'm going to do the same at the back there. So again, just down. Mine didn't quite wrap around straight there. I've got a little edge there which I may fix afterwards. I might just pop a little piece of paper in there. I'll see how I feel. But again, this one's going to go just down that outside edge there, level with that red paper, just to add, it's almost like a, you know, a closure and a decorative edge, just so that we've not got that raw edge of paper. And then once that's nicely fixed in place, I can take my scissors there and just snip this level with the base of the box there. So that's the design, and then I'm going to put this one on flat on the front and just center that in the front. And again, I've done the same again. I've got some double-sided adhesive on this one, and I'm going to add the glue again, just because this is going to hopefully be used, you know, year on year, and I want to make sure that that tape's not going to dry out and end up coming unstuck. So whenever you use a double-sided tape, sometimes the glue can dry out in it over time. So for things like cards that are generally not kept, you know, forever, it's not so bad. But when you're making something like this, or a home decor piece that you want, you know, to have longevity, it's worth just adding that little bit of extra glue to make sure that you've got that good seal in there. And then this one, making sure everything's the right way, is just going to sit pretty much centered on the book there. And then I've got a decorative piece to fit on top of there. So I'd chosen the piece with the Christmas tree on as the decoration, and then ended up covering some of it up because I wanted to use my die. I've got, I'm not quite sure what I did with it at this point because I've got bits of things everywhere. I've got a little Merry Christmas, vertical Merry Christmas die that I wanted to use here in the corner, and I cut it out of red cardstock and sat it on here, and it just disappeared into the design. So what I've actually done is just use some of that same paper. So this is a scrap from the background, and we're just going to bring this into here. So yeah, it does cover up some of the tree, but it just gives me that little bit of extra detail that I want on the front of it. I didn't want to go mad. I couldn't make my mind up whether to add any sort of flowers or anything like that, any poinsettias. And for the first time in a long time, at this point, I don't actually have any gems on it. Now, whether it will stay like that is a different matter, because I usually have to have gems on everything. And again, I am just going to pop little dabs of that acrylic glue on there just to keep it nice and secure. So I'm just going to hold that up so that I can see, and I want that to go in that top corner with about the same distance across the top and down the side, like so, and then give that a press down. Now my die cut, I actually did a red layer and a couple of layers in the scrap craft card, because and it's got a nice raised finish on it. So I chose a nice red mirror card just to bring everything together and add a little bit of shine. And then we've got the glitter card for a bit of sparkle. And you can see there we've got that lovely Christmas book. Now I'm not quite sure, as I say, whether I want to add anything else to it yet, whether it wants to have any extra decoration. I was thinking possibly one of the little poinsettia flowers and some foliage across this corner. I may do that, I'm not sure. You'll see in the final pictures whether I added any extra decoration and whether I could resist adding any extra gems on there, because there aren't any at the minute. I did wonder whether I could get away with some in the stars. So that's the last bit that I am actually going to do to it. So yeah, quite happy with that. I think it looks really nice. It's lovely and sturdy. And again, you've got those little boxes in there which I can now pop my little treats in. And what I'm going to do is, I've got my daughter's work schedule right up to Christmas, so we know what days we're looking after the boys. So on the days that we've got the boys, I'm going to put some chocolates in for them to open, and on the days in between I've got some toffees to put in for myself and my husband that both like those. So yeah, I'm going to work them out, and so that the boys can open, put a couple in, got some little chocolate Santas, put a couple in on the days that they're here, so that when they open their little box, and it's got 2 little treats in for them. And then, as I say, on the other days, I'm going to put them in for myself and my husband to enjoy. So I hope you've enjoyed that one. I know it was a little bit lengthy today, but it was a good, solid project for you to follow. And if you have enjoyed, consider giving it a thumbs up for me. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I would love you to subscribe so that you can follow my journey. And I will be back very, very soon with another Christmas video. This was number 3, I think, in my 12 days of Christmas. I'll be back very soon with the next one. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you very soon. Bye bye now.